Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the Nittany Lion Sports Report. It is live here on Bob Long Sports and simulcast housed on the Sports Stream Premium Network. So a lot to get to today. My guy, Tyler Gehlhaus. Look at the whiteboard behind us if you're watching on YouTube. There's nothing there. Nothing but a sea of white. And that is what you're going to see this weekend as College Game Day comes to town. Auburn comes to town. War Eagle, maybe the War on Eagle, as Penn State Nittany Lions look to take down the Auburn Tigers. Tyler, a lot to break down from last week, but I know we'll move pretty quickly into the Bo Nix-led Auburn Tigers. But Penn State is 2-0, a good solid victory over Ball State, much to the chagrin of our guest picker from last week, Kurt Hoffman, who is a Ball State letterman. What did you take away?
My takeaways were probably all three phases of the game looked pretty strong to me. Special teams, Stott was 3 for 4 with a miss on the 45, so that was certainly an improvement from week 1 against Wisconsin. He hasn't given up a return of a kickoff or a punt yet. He's just been booming the ball from those facets of the special teams. And then offense, I think we started to see them get rolling, albeit I thought, a little vanilla. I don't think they really showed much, and I think that's okay. I'd rather have them kind of keep some things in their back pocket still early on in the season. No turnovers, again, by the offense, not on the year. And then the defense, I thought, looked really good again, causing two interceptions. Lucetta, house call, pick 6, and then Daquan Hardy had a nice interception himself in the third. Ball State coming into it, I thought, we all picked them to cover that 22 points, as big of a margin as that seems. They had a lot of publicity coming into this season, especially this game as an upset alert type of game, and Penn State didn't flinch. They were prepared. There was no trap game, no looking ahead to the whiteout. There was no Wisconsin hangover. So impressive win, and a win that they should always take care of business, but they look good doing it.
Yeah, I think you have to say that this team looked good. Played great on the defensive line. Jessier Whittington was a star. Played pretty good in the half that they didn't have Ellis Brooks. Thought the secondary was great. Sean Clifford, good enough. I don't think he was as crisp as he could have been, but I also think that he made some good reads at times and did not turn the football over. Those are things that Penn State's looking to do. First time back for 107,000 fans. They were treated to a nice show. And that's a game that if Penn State wants to go where it needs to go, it's a game you need to win comfortably. But I was impressed. I thought Ball State was going to make it a more difficult game, and from the beginning on, that really wasn't the case. Even the touchdown at the end, it was against a bunch of threes that Penn State had put out there. So you win the game comfortably, you get good performances from your best players, and you get reps for your second team and even your third team guys down the stretch. That's a very successful Saturday afternoon in Beaver Stadium.
Yeah, and on top of all that, it appears that Penn State came out of that game healthy. Probably some dings here and there like every other game, but Jaquan Brisker was able to rest a lot, which is good coming off of his Wisconsin game where he was banged up. Excuse me. So that's another good thing is that these guys were able to rest up a little bit, get their legs back for this week's game against Auburn.
We have a special guest coming on, Rob Stott of the Bob Long Sports football game broadcast team. He's going to tell us about LaSalle against Imhotep from this past Saturday. And Tyler, 2 Penn State commits and a third guy that's a sophomore interior defensive lineman that already has offers from Penn State as well as Boston College and Temple University. So he's going to walk us through that experience. And also, in honor of College Game Day coming to Happy Valley, Rob's going to tell us about his experience being on Game Day Live, hosted on Bob Long Sports before LaSalle versus Imhotep. We had a live on-campus pregame show. Great involvement by the LaSalle Pep Band, and Rob Stott got up there and made a headgear pick. So we won't spoil it any further than that, but he's going to tell us about that on the show. But again, I think it was great and will be great to have him on to talk about the future of Penn State. 2 guys, maybe even a third, that could be wearing Nittany Lion blue in a few years. The other thing I want to talk about as we move on from Ball State, unless you had something else there,
It's Auburn week.
It is Auburn week. It is Whiteout week, Tyler. And this game that folks have been looking forward to for years is finally upon us. A big-name SEC West school that is a top echelon program every year, national champion program, new coach, not a new quarterback. Bo Nix, a guy who's been there for seemingly 5 years now, continues to lead the charge there. He has shown wonderful flashes of being a top-end quarterback in the SEC. He has also been a benchable guy who has made significant mistakes in big games. This is a big game. Sean Clifford has also made mistakes in big games, and he's also a guy who can surprise you every now and again.
They're very similar.
Yep. So, as we look towards this, as it turns out, Penn State is going to be wearing blue in the whiteout. Auburn going to be wearing white in the whiteout. What do we expect for this one, Tyler? What are folks going to be expecting, or what should they be expecting to see on Saturday evening? A 7:30 kickoff on ESPN, a College Game Day matchup.
Sure. I'll start with the quarterback play. As you said, Bo Nix has been very streaky throughout his career. He has beaten Oregon in the first game of his college career. He's even knocked off Alabama. One of those games being neutral site, the other one being at home. If you look at his stats, and I don't have them in front of me, I wish I did, but his home or neutral site statistics are actually really, really good. And then you flip the page to his away game, and it's, touchdowns and interceptions are even at 10. He's just a totally different quarterback away from Jordan-Hare Stadium or on the road in a true away game. So, that's the first thing I'm looking to. Auburn, I think, is going to rely on the run heavily. They have a really good running back in Tank Bigsby. Penn State has been very stout against the run for the most part. Wisconsin and Malusi had 100 and some yards, but they also ran it a lot. So, but for the most part, they've been able to keep those guys in check. It'll be interesting. I mean, is it the Bo Nix that shows up at home in a neutral site games, or is it the Bo Nix that shows up on the road? I hope it's the one that shows up on the road. It's going to be a phenomenal atmosphere. First whiteout since 2019 Michigan. It should be a great day, really, for Penn State. College Game Day, 7:30 night game with the whiteout on ABC. Hopefully capped off by another early season win against a ranked opponent.
Last week, Tyler, you told me that you would be shocked if Penn State lost any of the next 4 games that was starting with Ball State and then all the way through the home game against Indiana on October 2nd. Yeah. I said that I would not be shocked if they lost to Auburn this weekend. I'm here to reiterate that point. This is an eminently dangerous game against a really good Auburn team. They have played nobody, though. They have played nobody. They
have looked good playing nobody, though, too. So
62-0 against, I think it was South Alabama last week. They played Akron in
who
week
was
1.
God-awful. But still, I mean, they looked good, though. But they played nobody, but you can play nobody and not look good. So it's like You really don't know what to take from it.
And Penn State, I don't want to lull anybody into a false sense of security. I'm impressed with what they've done the last few weeks. I'm impressed with the way the defense scrambled against Wisconsin. And I'm impressed with the margin of victory against Ball State. But it is Ball State. And at no point this year can anybody realistically say that there's a belief that this offense is going to or will be able to stand up against a high-quality defense, and that's exactly what Auburn has. I expect this to be a low-scoring game. Maybe a big play or two wins it. This is a game where the winner of this is primed for great positioning in their respective conferences. Yes, it's not going to impact anybody's ability to go to their respective conference championship game, but if you're talking about early, get into the top 10, which I think Auburn would sneak right up near the top 10 if they won this game. Penn State would sneak into the top 8 or 7, depending upon what else happens in the top 10. All of a sudden, both of these teams are fringe college football playoff. Auburn's got to beat Alabama. Penn State's got to beat Ohio State, and bang, you're in that spot.
Iowa
on the road, of course. Well, then you can you can say Texas A&M and Georgia
Sure.
for Auburn too, of course.
Things will fall into place.
This puts them in a position where, yes, this is one of these two teams after this weekend we'll be talking about as a team that does control its own destiny, and probably a team where that wasn't expected to be the case prior to the season. So this is your game of the week this coming weekend. No, rightly so, College game day, but I think Penn State fans, while they have the right to be confident and be certainly excited, Auburn is an extremely dangerous team, and I would argue is the third most talented team they'll play this year, behind Ohio State and Iowa, of course. Iowa, what a great win for them on the road in Ames. They look really good.
Iowa has the most impressive resume after 2 weeks so far, with knocking off Indiana, killing Indiana, and then really handling Iowa State on the road for the majority of that game. So Iowa, all of a sudden, top 5, kind of out of nowhere. So Kinnick, never an easy place for Penn State to play. Just got a little bit harder in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, let's walk through some of the personnel and what we saw over the weekend. Again, Clifford for me, better, but less pressure, more space, more time. This is going to be a big test for him, but he acquitted himself a little bit better. He's still missing throws in the open field, but we said it last week. We're saying it this week, and the more weeks that I come on this show and say this, the more chances Penn State has to win. His misses are either high and outside or low, as opposed to high and inside where they were last year, which lead to interceptions. So a couple high balls that went out of bounds. Hasn't really missed to the inside. There were a couple of should have been intercepted balls at Wisconsin. I felt less that way this week at Ball State. He was under better control, and the results showed that. Thought Sean Clifford played well. Noah Cain looks to be the guy for this team, with Kevon Lee being a guy who I think can be your bruising second back dynamic duo. Devin Ford got some time. He's still really finding his way at this time as a Penn State Indy Lion, which is a shame. Super talented. Still needs to work his way into Mike Yurcich's system. But, I would like to see a little bit more out of Devin Ford, but that running back room, very, very cluttered.
Yeah, and we still haven't seen John Lovett, the Baylor transfer, so not really sure what's going on there.
Yeah.
Lovett, Keaton Ellis, and Hakeem Beamon have been around, but haven't been dressed for games. So it doesn't sound like it's an injury thing, but hopefully whatever it is, they can get straightened out sooner rather than later, as they could use all three of those guys big time.
We talked a little bit about the wide receiver combination and how they were really tight at Wisconsin. A couple more guys got run, which is good. Again, it's that'll continue to develop, and maybe a game like Villanova is a guy where you'll see a lot more of Liam Clifford, Harrison Wallace, those types of guys. But the top three look pretty well situated there. Again, I want to see Winston Eubanks get more run as the fourth wide receiver, the second guy off the bench there. But excited, again, for what Parker Washington and Jahan Dotson can do. Dotson can take the top off and also is that safety valve. He's that unique combination of just being the guy.
Like you said, he can take the top off, what you saw in week 1, and then what you saw last week, a nice little screen pass and juke a couple guys out, get a couple nice blocks, and off he goes to the end zone. So he can kind of score on any play. It's just a matter of getting him the ball. You got to figure that Auburn, who has a pretty good secondary, is going to be eyeing him up all day. These other guys are going to have to show up. Parker Washington, Keandre Lambert-Smith, the tight ends. I know Theo Johnson had a touchdown catch, first one late in the game against Ball State. They're gonna need to do a little bit more this week, especially Brenton Strange as well, because they're going to be eyeing up Dotson. And I think that the tight ends could be crucial in the run game and the blocking. They got to get the run game going a little bit more because that'll ease it up for Clifford.
And I think that is still an ongoing question. Again, far from a concern, but something we've all kept our eyes on. We saw the system that Mike Yurcich ran at Texas, and granted that was only for a year, and he was marginally involved in what they did at Ohio State. Those are not programs that involved the tight ends the way Penn State did under Kirk Shiraka, but really more so before him, Joe Moorhead, and the guys that got the Mike Gesicki's of the world, the Pat Freiermuths. We'll even give Ricky Ronnie a shout out there, right? If nothing else, he got the tight ends involved and made this a tight end factory. Still to be determined, Tyler, as to what role they're going to take in Penn State's system under Mike Yurcich. They're supremely talented. I think we will see more this weekend. Just something I'm keeping my eye on. And then on the offensive line, loving seeing Eric Wilson win the role. We talked about it in our Week 0 show, and it seems like he is the guy at guard there.
Yeah, another remarkable transfer portal pickup by Penn State. Right now, counted, I have, what's that, 3 starters now?
So what? That's
Tangelo, Ebikete,
Wilson,
and Wilson. And even a guy like Lighton on special teams. Johnny Dixon in his secondary. There's a lot of guys that are contributing.
Jair Brown and Jaquan Brisker. It wasn't this year,
right?
But
junior,
yeah,
and the
JUCO
junior
guys.
college route, sure. But I mean, Eric Wilson. Good for him from coming from Harvard and not even really. They didn't even play last year, and then was maybe a little bit slow getting his footing back.
He missed spring camp, of course, because you got to stay for that piece of paper in the spring.
Yeah, you think, and then didn't start week 1, but he played the majority of week 1 after Wiggins struggled, and it's his job now.
Yep, exciting. So that's a look at the offense. I think the rest of the line, doing pretty well, right? I think the tackles are in a good spot. Caden Wallace, Rasheed Walker, excited where they are. Really, really solid line, but again, they will be tested. They did a decent job at Wisconsin, particularly in the second half. Great against Ball State. Okay, let's see it against an SEC defensive line.
Yeah. It's gonna be one of the battles I'm gonna be watching very closely, both offense and defense in the trenches.
Mm-hmm. And then at defensive end, right? Switching to the defense, we know that they are light at defensive end, but to the extent that Ellis Brooks isn't ejected again for targeting and Jesse Lucetta can stay on that outside edge rusher, boy, between him and Ebikete,
yeah.
Exciting, and then up the middle. I still want to see a little bit more of Derek Tangelo. We talked at the end of last year about Antonio Shelton moving on, and
right.
You didn't think it's a huge loss, and I get that, right? But it really would be nice to have 320, 330 in the middle at the 1 technique. You could let PJ kind of flip over to the 3. Tangelo has been okay, but I want to see a little bit more out of him. And you mentioned the rushing game. Well, it's those 1 and 3 guys in the middle that can really stymie that. And I think they do need to be a little bit better to get where they want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I think that, if they can get Beeman back for whatever reason he's not there right now.
Yep.
Because he can play end and tackle, and that'll help at both positions depth-wise. Jesse Lucetta looks like a totally different football player. He looks like a natural defensive end. I mean, that was one of the most impressive one-handed interceptions you'll see really from any player on the field, let alone a defensive end. So it's really good that he seemed to have turned the corner, but really grasped the defensive end position and has kind of taken it. I mean, I like Tar Burton, more of a solid, reliable, when healthy depth option, but I think Lucetta brings a lot more to the table in terms of athleticism and getting to the quarterback and making plays.
Our guest picker, Rob Stott, just showed up in the building, and it is interesting, Tyler, the Carlers. We're going to talk about a guy that we both saw this weekend, Abdel Carter, who's played nothing but linebacker throughout his time in high school, but they're already talking about him both on campus and then the insiders writing about it and talking about it like us, that he is a prime candidate to be an edge rusher. And there are some similarities between him and Jesse Lucetta. Size, brawn, athletic capability.
Yeah, eventually, nature takes over and keep growing. You get to a college weight room and you're going to have to switch positions eventually.
And I think that's the moneymaker for him. I mean, we saw one rush. He didn't even have his hand on the ground in the 3-point stance, but did come off the edge, and it was one swim move, and it was, again, unlike any move I've seen at the high school level. Maybe Eni White threw 1 or 2 there, another guy we'll talk about, but it was as good as it gets. We'll talk about that, but again, Lucetta really good this weekend on the defensive line. Mustafa, again, solid. Need him to be your guy. It seems like he's been playing forever.
Yep.
Young kid out of McDonough that has become a fantastic Nittany Lion. And then I think the linebackers were good, and the secondary is a real strength of this team, especially with Castro Fields playing better, healthy.
Yeah, and
Porter Jr. is going to be one of the all-time greats.
Sure, and Brown and Brisker just, I know they have that Lackawanna connection, but
right.
So far, I know it's early, but they've been on the same page, and It's been some of the best safety combination play, and I know it's early again, but that I've seen combination-wise between the two starting Penn State safeties in some time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Penn State, Auburn, coming up this weekend. Again, Bo Nix is going to need to do a lot. They are going to rely on that rushing game, and they're one of the best defenses in the SEC, or so we're told. Who could possibly say, playing South Alabama and Akron to start? But that is not to undersell this team. I look at this game as a toss-up. The line may not tell you that, but maybe to give you an insight on where I'm thinking about for our picks coming up down the stretch. This is a concerning game for Penn State, but it's also one of those games that you want to be in, right? The eyes of the nation are looking at you. Defend your home turf. Prove that the Whiteout is a top premier environment in all of college football. And I think they'll do all those things this weekend. But a new coach for Auburn, some pressure on Harsin, the new guy down there. Gus Malzahn is gone, running a little bit of a different offense, and some momentum down there for Auburn. It's going to be a great game, and I think Penn State will be up for the challenge. And if nothing else, Beaver Stadium will show very well on Saturday night.
It'll be an amazing scene. Kirk Herbstreit absolutely loves the Whiteout, and as an Ohio State grad that he is, he's actually very fair towards Penn State. He's very non-biased in my opinion. But he literally lives for this night. He'll be commentating the game with Chris Fowler, who way back in May, June, whenever they released the times and the ABC games, right away he tweeted, "Can't wait to be back at the Whiteout." So,
didn't he say at one point that the Whiteout was his first experience as a young kid?
Maybe because he actually was raised, I don't know for how long, because his dad was a professor at Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
So he did live in State College for some of his childhood. I actually ran into both of them at a State College football game the night before Penn State beat Ohio State with the Grant Haley return. Yep. They were at the game just watching, partially because it's Chris Fowler. It was like his hometown, and he was, I don't know if he considers it his hometown, but he did live there for an extended period of time. So both those guys love Penn State. It'll be, win or lose, it'll be great for the country to see what Penn State has to offer.
Yeah, and now that you're saying that, and I feel confident enough to reiterate, yes, I saw a video that he took, and it was probably at the beginning of the pandemic or maybe even before then, saying that he remembered being in this seat or this section as Joe Paterno and the team ran out onto the field, and it was his first college football experience that got him in love with the sport. So I believe that was on his Twitter. Go check that out, Chris Fowler, and adds a little bit more intrigue, or at least personal feeling to the game on Saturday night. Funny story, you talk about high school football. That game where Grant Haley takes it back, earlier that day, my guy, Rob Stott, and I were calling a game of our own, and it was a game where DeAndre Swift, yes, that DeAndre Swift of the Detroit Lions and of the Georgia Bulldogs, and could have been Penn State Nittany Lions, turned out not to be, ran for 7 touchdowns against LaSalle. He was playing for St. Joe's Prep. So I remember going up to that game and saying, DeAndre Swift was the most talented athlete I saw play today. Turns out to very likely be the case.
My, oh my. That's good stuff. And then obviously we'll hear about the next game later with more Philadelphia stars making their way to the college gridiron shortly.
Yeah, Philadelphia high school football is as good as it's been. Now, again, we'll take 3 minutes on this, Tyler, and if you're watching or listening, you want to skip, I'd go past 3 or 4 minutes. But James Franklin has had to address rumors once again about Southern Cal. This time the job is actually open. In times past, it's been while Clay Helton still held the job. Dan Patrick's show throws a little bit of an interesting flair on it and says that a source that he's close to, of course he won't release the name, says that there is, quote, mutual interest between James Franklin and Southern Cal. What are your reactions to that, Tyler?
My reaction is, one, I'm not surprised that Southern Cal is interested in him. I wouldn't, because the name's been floating around there for a while. Every year it's Clay Helton. He's going to get fired this year. Well, he finally gets fired in week 2 of this season. That really stinks, by the way, for him. But the other side of it to me is, I was very confident, and I still am with Penn State this week, but it's just, to me, it's an unnecessary distraction. You start off 2-0, and now, you got to block that out. I don't know what's going on with Franklin and USC, if they're talking at all, but if they are, I mean, that's going to have an impact on the team, I would think, and the coaching and where his head is this week. I would like to say that it's not mutual interest. I hope it's just a false, report. Because, it's one thing at the end of the season, and I would hate to see him go, but, really, week 3, 2-0 going into Auburn, it's just, really bad timing for me.
Mm-hmm. I get that. Yep. And you've seen this before with James Franklin. He has leveraged other offers, or at least other interests, into negotiating contract increases for himself. But where he's done a really good job is it hasn't always been an unbelievable raise for him, relatively speaking, of course, when you're talking millions of dollars.
Facilities.
Bingo. You're allocating resources to hiring better assistants, or at least paying your assistants more. When you have a better pool, you can hire better assistants,
right.
Facility increases, etc. And those are long-term decisions that he's making, so that is the one thing you kind of hold your hat on. But
I was just going to say, I don't, I get the weather in Southern California is awesome. But you kind of just rebuilt Penn State, if you will, a couple years ago, and with Saquon Barkley, Trace McSorley, all those guys, and then last year is what it, it's over with, but it happened. And then you start off hot this year. You're recruiting. You have the number 1 recruiting class in the country, and that won't stick at number 1 just because of numbers, and they have 22 commits right now, or 24, and other schools don't have that many, but to me, it just seems like, why step back and kind of start over at a new school? And I know USC is a destination job and all. Well, yeah, I mean, but you're really starting back over. And if that's what you want to do, but I just think he's at a really good spot at Penn State. But I don't know. I mean, he might not be as happy. He looks like he's very happy this year. But, like you said, money talks.
Money talks, and then, listen, there are the other personal elements of this. His daughter has a disease, right? Is it sickle cell? And
I think so, but don't quote me on it.
Same here, but the Southern California hospital and medical community is far superior to that of Central Pennsylvania. And then there's the stuff that happens where your special teams captain, Jonathan Sutherland, gets a racist message sent to him, and you yourself are a minority candidate in Central Pennsylvania. And again, that's not in any way reflective of say, the broader community, or really anybody specifically, but that kind of is what it is. And, does any of that matter to him? And again, this is why I recommended folks just move past the 4 minutes, because a lot of this is speculation. But Southern California, one of the more diverse, liberal areas in the country. The hospital systems are what they are. So for his daughter, does any of that matter? I don't know. I'm not going to answer. You're not going to answer. But that's just part of the equation, not to mention Southern Cal's tradition and the money that comes with it. And that's probably why we're talking about it right now.
And he's going to get asked about it 1,000 times tonight at, the media, because Wednesdays are media day. But I just don't want it to be, I know nobody wants to be a distraction, but imagine they just look like crap on Saturday because they're not going to come out and say, we were distracted because of our coach, but that's where everyone's mind's going to go right away.
I hear you.
You know what I mean? So I just hope it's not a distraction for anybody, and, and kind of just move on and see what happens.
Yep. We'll see. Best case scenario, James Franklin negotiates more money for his assistants, and they continue to keep guys like Mike Yurcich and Brent Pry happy, right? That's the best case scenario, and maybe some facilities upgrades. If that's what comes from this, I think everybody can breathe a sigh of relief, but it does continue to regurgitate itself every couple of years. All right, that's it on that. We're done. Done on James Franklin and those rumors to Southern Cal. We'll let
we'll talk about it next week and the week after
Sports
that.
And ESPN. We'll let all those writers.
Hold on, real quick though. How do you think that plays out? Is USC will they hire somebody at the end of the year?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so. If
Because
it's
that would be
James
totally
Franklin,
bizarre.
I would say between the end of the regular season and the playoffs, if Penn State is not in the college football playoff, that would be the one situation where I could see it changing.
They'll probably just ride with an interim the whole season or something like that.
They've already named an interim.
Okay.
Yep. So that's my guess. Unless Urban wants to quit Jacksonville, in which case they can bring him on now.
He might quit, but I don't think at that point he'd get back into the coaching. I think he's already regretting going there.
Yeah, fair enough. And then Bob Stoops would be the other guy, or somebody that's on TV right now. That's a guy who could step in right now, potentially.
Bob Stoops, and I don't want to turn this into a USC thing, but that'd be interesting. I mean, he is on Big Noon Kickoff with Matt Leinart. Just saying.
And is Reggie Bush
Reggie
still
Bush,
doing
too.
it?
They're probably in his ear, man.
They should just hire both of them.
Yeah. Quarterbacks
Co-head coach.
running back coach, Stoops head coach.
Co-manager and co-manager for my Office fans out there. All right, that is it. Now we're done. We'll take a quick break, though, and bring Rob Stott on the other side, our guest picker for the evening. We're going to talk some Penn State recruiting with 3 guys on the field that may, well, 2 of them will, and one of them may find his way into Navy Blue in the coming years. So stay with us here on the Nittany Lion Sports Report.
Dunphy Ford is Mayfair's neighborhood Ford store.
Nobody knows your neighborhood like Dunphy Ford.
Nearly 40 years.
Right here on Frankfurt Avenue.
Generation after generation. Our neighbors continue to be our customers. We have access to the cars and trucks you want with financing you need.
Dunphy Ford is Northeast Philly's first choice for America's #1 brand. 7700 Frankfurt Avenue in Mayfair. Online at www.dunphyford.com.
Come experience the Dunphy difference. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back to the Nittany Lion Sports Report. It's live here on Bob Long Sports and housed on the Sports Stream Premium Network. Again, I'm Bob Long. Tyler Gehlhaus is to my left if you're watching on YouTube. And if you're listening, then he's the other guy talking. And then to my right is Rob Stott, our guest picker for the evening. Rob, welcome. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, Bob. Appreciate you having me. Excited to be here. And I think if I remember right, the last time, it was a couple of years ago now, but I think it was, a 5-1 effort that I put forward.
Very good.
You at least gave me the games for that one, though, so I don't know what I'm picking tonight, so we're coming in blind.
So. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you go 5-1, you set the bar pretty high.
I know. We got.
There's no flashcards for this one.
No, got to make it a little more difficult.
That's right. That's right. Well, we'll run it on the fly. But before we get there, Rob is a high school broadcasting aficionado, and I am honored that he chooses to spend his time calling football with me and Bob Long Sports and LaSalle College High School. And Rob, we had a fantastic game this past weekend as LaSalle took on Imhotep, 2 of the best teams in the area, 2 of the best teams in the state, regardless of classification. And it was LaSalle coming up with a 13-8 win. A lot of talent on the field.
It was. And I mean, it's kind of funny. You look back to what we were doing. We did a whole, and I know we'll get more into it, but we did a whole pregame show ahead of time. And that whole time during that pregame show, we were talking about how we thought it was going to be low scoring, very much in the trenches type of game. And, we thought back to the last time those 2 teams met and it was low scoring, figured it would be pretty similar, a similar sort of effort from both teams. And what do you know? What was it? A 13-8 or something like that? It finished
13-8,
and we read it well, and it was just a lot of fun to call. You mentioned all the talent on the field. I mean, a lot of it felt like a mini Big Ten clash with kind of what we had going on. So a lot of Big Ten commits there on the field, but just a great effort and a nice win for LaSalle on homecoming to top it all off.
Really nice win for LaSalle, 13-8. They're 3-0 on the season, and the name that folks that watch this show might be most interested in is one Mr. Abdel Carter wearing number 22 and playing linebacker.
Yeah, 22 in your programs, but number 1 in your 2022 recruiting class hearts for Penn State and the
really
Nittany Lions. Just an unbelievable athletic specimen that we've had the pleasure of being able to watch over the last 4 years grow and develop into just I venture to call him a world-class high school athlete because that's what he displayed on, Saturday. I know he came up big for homecoming, but a guy that we saw him. I think when he started out, he was playing mainly offense, but they had him, mixing in a little bit on defense. His first sophomore, junior year, but then really last year was when they decided to, stick him on that defensive side of the ball, right in the middle of the field at linebacker, and he's just blossomed ever since. And, Mr. Franklin, I know you guys were talking, hopefully Mr. Franklin, has a nice prospect coming to him next year up there at Happy Valley.
Yeah, well, at least before the USC stuff started, he was supposed to be coming down to watch this game on Friday night, 8:00 p.m., Wissahickon High School. So
we'll be there.
Folks are, and we'll be there. So
James Franklin is supposed to come down to that.
There was talk of him taking a helicopter and landing somewhere nearby.
He does do that. So I wouldn't be totally surprised. I know last week on Friday he was down in Delaware recruiting. So I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the USC talks wouldn't stop him from doing that.
No, it's more a joke. But
but you never know. I mean, it certainly could happen.
Yeah.
Day before Whiteout, we'll see. I mean, nothing. He's got a big time recruit there, and it'll be interesting.
Well, we'll have a very talented cameraman or woman there, TBD, and we'll make sure to get the entrance and the landing of the helicopter if, in fact, that does happen. But that's the game coming up next weekend, Friday, 8:00 at Wissahickon. So if you're in the area, again, we're a Philadelphia-based show, so if you're around here, you should come on out and see it. But, Rob, it was his best game in a LaSalle uniform, and I wonder your thoughts. We teased it in the last break, but what type of player do you think he translates to at the next level?
Yeah, I mean, it was you say his best game. I think, again, we've been watching him for a couple of years now. That was a standout game. I mean, he just stepped up. It felt like we were calling his number every other play for the Explorers. And, I mean, the way he's positioned right now, I heard you talking about it a little bit when I walked in, but, he's a linebacker for this Explorers team. He's been a stalwart in the middle of the field, but he's still, 18 years old, which means he's got some growing left to do. And he's already, clearly the biggest athlete on the field, the biggest player that you see on that LaSalle defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if, he gets up to Happy Valley in that weight room there, puts a few pounds on. He's still going to grow. He looked, and he lined up as well, a couple times, last Friday and or last Saturday during homecoming on the edge. So I wouldn't be surprised if he converts himself into a D end, as he gets to college, and just a very athletic one at that. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But whatever they decide to do with him up there, the kid's going to step up to the plate and knock it out of the park.
And then one piece of cross-promotional ideas here. Sports Stream Premium Network, Bruce Badgley, his show, Pre-Snap Look, which is a D12 and D1 high school football show, he actually had Abdul on the show this past week. And one of the comments that was made was, hey, I know you're wearing number 22. Do you want to wear that at Penn State? Reason asking is that's John Capoletti's number. And I know Evan Royster had worn it most recently, but yeah, it's retired. And Abdul said, I'll make my case. And basically he thought he was worthy of that consideration. So not lacking for confidence.
He sounds a little bit more like a number 11 right now.
I know, I hear that.
And setting the bar pretty high, but
he likes 22.
Well, we'll see.
I know, but you're right. I'm with you on 11. Micah Parsons, of course, LeVar Arrington.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's the Abdul Carter story. Again, you should watch our broadcast if you haven't. We'll be broadcasting Abdul and the rest of the Explorers all year long. But there were other guys on the other side of the football. Keon Wylie was an edge rusher as well, also played some time in the tight end role, although that's not going to be a college thing for him. And then Jessier Whittington, a name that Penn State fans may not be as familiar with. Just in the last 3 weeks, he earned 3 offers, Boston College, Temple, and your Penn State Nittany Lions. And he is as of right now, 3-technique defensive tackle, so he's playing inside. And Rob, I'm interested in your thoughts on him, as well as Keon, who has already committed.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool to see. I figured if any game, James would show up to, it'd be to, well, I guess he already did the work, but, he had 2 guys on the defensive side of the ball. They're playing, squaring off against each other. Luckily, not an offensive and defensive guy where they're literally clashing heads on the field. Maybe take those hits a little more softly. But
the Ball State game at 3:30 kind of dissuaded.
Helicopter doesn't go that fast.
Little busy, but no. I mean, it was cool to see 2 guys that are going to eventually be teammates up there, and the talent level. I still if you're talking about, and I know we have another guy, Enai, who was he's uncommitted as of right now, but the top edge rusher. recruit in the country right now. But of the 3 athletes that we saw, and then you throw Whittington in there as well. I mean, Abdul, maybe it's bias, hometown bias, but I feel like he stood out. We just saw, I think, a lot more from him being a game wrecker of sorts during the course of that game. But I mean, all 4 of them, you had 3 seniors and a sophomore, unbelievably, in Whittington, that are just they're going to be names you're going to be hearing a lot of on Saturdays moving forward.
Yeah, exciting. I would throw Enai and Abdul in that same category. And I'm sure Keon too, right? It might have just been the wrong game because you talk to people and some folks will tell you that watch Imhotep every game. They'll say that Keon has more of a game-to-game impact. That wasn't the case on Saturday.
Right.
Might have been LaSalle running the ball away from him a little bit, and I give Keon credit for that. But Enai was everywhere as well, and I thought he had a really nice game. Just a treat, Rob, to be able to go broadcast a game like that.
It was just, I felt like we see that sort of talent year to year. Typically, it's during the LaSalle prep game when you've got some big names going on there on certainly the prep side of the ball. But, it was cool to see it. Philly-based, all the talent that's kind of being homegrown here that has just gotten so incredible. This area has always been a hotbed for football, right? But I mean, it just feels like we're in the midst of quite the era for high school football in Philadelphia.
It's really taking off right now,
all throughout PA, which even is why Penn State's number 1.
Yeah, in the last couple of classes, and then obviously you guys talked about this class, and then I'm not really on to the 2023 yet. But you already talked a little bit about 2024. I know Roman Catholic even has some guys coming up, and they're known for their basketball. So
right.
It's really good to see Philadelphia football back on the map here.
And Marvin Harrison, they're known for at Roman Catholic as well.
That too.
Yeah, no doubt. But, Rob, that was not the only thing we did that day.
No, it was not. We did quite a bit that day.
Yeah, in honor of College Game Day coming up to Penn State this weekend, we did our own version called Game Day Live. And we did it from the track, in front of the band, and in front of the stands at Springfield High School. So we had you, me, Tyler Kern, who also is a former guest picker here as well. And we did a live show. We had guests like Drew Lockery, 2009 state champion quarterback for LaSalle. We had Chris Mealy, who was former band director and now is a facilitator. And, man, did he bring the noise. And then Jamie Lynch from 97.5 The Fanatic. He was our version of you right now. He was our guest picker.
Yeah, it was a fun day. And the cool thing, of course, it being homecoming, everything was tied back to the LaSalle community, right? So you talk about, obviously, the 3 of us, Rob, Bob, and Tyler, funny enough, but Tyler Kern, and we're all LaSalle grads. You had Jamie, who's a 2000 grad. You had Chris, who was 2013, I believe, and then obviously Drew Locke and what he did with the 09-10 football team and that state championship. And what a fun day, man. I mean, it was cool to be out there. We were going to be there anyway, so of course, why not just come a little bit earlier and set that vibe up for the day and bring the excitement early on. And aside from just having the band behind us and everything they did, being able to talk to those guys about the history of LaSalle football and talk to Jamie about what he's been able to do, his time at LaSalle, and how that's translated to his job now at the Fanatic, and just a great day. And then, of course, I hope there's a question coming up about some things we had to do, when you put your anchors on your co-hosts on the spot. But
put them on. I mean, check this out here. Check out this video right here. Rob and Tyler doing push-ups, punch for punch, push-up for push-up. Look at you guys go.
Punch for punch, you may want to. I don't know about that. It was a great competition, and I was in the moment. Tyler and I were going, like you said, push up for push up, and had the crowd chanting behind us, counting them off. And I kind of want to go back and do a recount here, because if you look at it, I mean, if we can do instant replay, if you want to try to edit some instant replay into this, those push ups. My chest is maybe a centimeter off the ground. I'm doing full extension push-ups.
I do agree with that.
Like a true wrestler that you are.
Right. And Tyler over here is just going halfway. So, I mean, you want to cut – he got what? They counted, in air quotes, like 48 push-ups for him or something like that.
It was impressive, but for both of you. Don't get me wrong. He's a big dude, too. Like, I was like, Rob's going to kill him. And I'm watching, I'm like, whoa.
In there.
But it did get a little confusing with the audience was only counting – like for both of you,
Right.
so it was kind of hard to tell, who had
was
more.
what, and
because
who-
you definitely weren't at the same pace the whole time.
No,
I agree.
for
A
sure.
recount should be happening very soon.
And then he had to show, saving up his energy by only going halfway, and then showboating to throw me off my game
The
with the clap
clapping,
high
yeah.
fives.
Recount.
Recount.
Real
I had to
hanging
take-
Chad
I
situation.
had to
here.
take those pants to get dry cleaned, and he had shorts. Like
Yeah.
there's just a
Oh
lot
my
of factors
God.
going
Yeah.
on with that situation. So
But but then you had your redemption, and look at this here. If you're wondering who that guy is with that head on, it is Rob Stott.
yeah, we did
Headgear.
we did our picks, and the cool thing about that head, for early on we knew we were going to do a Lee Corso moment for me, and the cool thing about it was that's the same head that would have made the trip to the state college or to Hershey, where they play Hershey Field,
Yep.
for the state championship game, and to be able to put that on in front of the crowd and have that be the kind of going away moment for Game Day Live was just awesome. And something maybe, I don't know, one and done. They'll ask us back. I think we did an okay job.
Oh, I think we did a phenomenal job, and I think folks that were there, I think the folks really did enjoy it.
Free pizza for the students, and we just it was a good time. It was a good time.
A great time. Now, Tyler, I don't know if you knew this, but that head that you're talking about that went to Hershey Park was also the head that went on my head when I was a senior at LaSalle.
Oh, you were the Explorer?
The same
I
head
did
in-
not know that.
Let me
That's
tell you.
incredible. But it's not surprising, but I don't know how I didn't know that. You got to pull some pictures up of that and put it on there, too.
Let freedom ring, baby. Yes, sir.
Smells like it hadn't been washed since 2009 either. I just
Yeah,
want to say,
Good times. So maybe no better note upon which for us to do our own guest picker segment. Let's get our picks out.
no headgear around, right?
Well,
No
Well,
one's throwing
apparently
headgear.
no preparation either. That's
know.
unbelievable.
We're going into this cold.
Yeah, so anyway.
By the way, this segment is reason for anybody listening to watch.
This is
Watch
where
it on video.
this is
Pull
where
that
you-
phone up and
yeah,
do the video.
and depending on who you listen to, you'll either make money or lose money.
Oh.
So, not doing great this year, just like last year. But anyway, Rob, here we go. So I'm gonna give you 6 total games.
Yep.
The last game will be Penn State. That's the only game I will give you the spread, and
Yep.
you'll give me the cover and the score or the non-cover. Everything else is just head-to-head.
Straight
If you
up.
want to give a reason, that's great. If you don't, that's okay too.
Okay.
All right. So we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to start off noon kickoff. We have number 8 Cincinnati traveling to take on the Indiana Hoosiers.
Cincy traveling to Indy to take on the Hoosiers. I like the rankings. Cincy, I'll stick with them. I'll stick with the Bearcats, right? So we'll go number 8 for the win there.
They really struggled in the first half last week. Murray State, the Racers. But I do like Cincinnati as well to win this game. I do think they're good enough. Indiana has a lot of questions to answer, and I believe that Cincinnati wins this one.
I'm going Indiana. I think that they've been off to a slow start, but I think this kind of has a little bit of, don't take that Iowa game. That's not really who we are, who we want to be. And I think that Penix has a big game. I think Freifogel, the receiver, has a big game. And I think Indiana knocks off the Bearcats this week.
Wow, so we are no longer talking about Cincinnati as a championship contender.
Not in my world at least.
There
but
you go.
I'll probably be wrong. So we're gonna stick with another interesting Big Ten out of conference game. Michigan State travels down to Miami to take on the Hurricanes.
Whew. That's a trip in and of itself. I like Miami in that one. I don't know why. I like the vibe down there right now in Miami, and we're just gonna stick with them. Go with the Hurricane.
Hey, I don't really like the vibe down in Miami right
He
now.
likes the
I like
everything
the
but
ocean
the
vibe.
football
Right.
vibe.
I'm thinking more of the city and the food. A great culture down there.
Got it.
So I'm going with Miami for that reason.
Yeah, cannot say I'm a big Manny Diaz guy, but a little bit of smoke and mirrors here with Michigan State. Miami wins this one at home. I agree.
I think this is going to be a really good game. I mean, Miami hasn't looked good at all, obviously, against Alabama. Not many people do look good against Alabama, but even against Appalachian State, who we all know what Appalachian State is, and they're no longer, little sisters of the poor, whatever. I mean, they almost beat Miami last week. Michigan State looks pretty good so far under Mel Tucker this year. But I don't know. I think Miami being at home, maybe you're talking about the nightlife and all that. Maybe there's some distractions for Michigan State, even though they're usually on a pretty strict schedule. But I'm going to go Miami here too. I think it's going to be a close game. I think both the games we just talked about are going to be pretty good games.
Yep. Good picks there, Tyler.
Well, This one, I think I know where everyone's going, but, it's the CBS 3:30 game. It's two top – I don't think Florida's top 10, are they? I think they're right outside. But anyway, the Crimson Tide roll into Gainesville and take on the Florida Gators.
Yeah, fun matchup. Was actually had the chance to watch a little bit. So this is the only one I probably have a little bit of study on because I watched SportsCenter during lunch this afternoon, and I know that you go back to the Tebow era, and it was very much a Florida favored matchup. But since then, I think they're like 2-6 against the Tide or something along those lines. And
that's not that bad.
No, all things considered, not that bad. I mean, to pull off 2 wins somehow without Tim Tebow as your quarterback down there in Florida. But I think you'd be crazy right now to pick against Alabama and everything they have going on. They graduate so much talent every year, but still refill the well.
Yep. Reload.
And sometimes not even graduate, just send it to the NFL early.
Right.
Yeah. There you go.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. I got nothing else.
Yeah, I'm going Alabama too. I just felt like SEC game of the week, throw it in there, even though I kind of know where everyone's going with it. Everybody gets a point here, hopefully, or nobody does. So, this game, the next game, I think is actually pretty interesting. I think it might be after the Whiteout. I'm not totally sure, but it's definitely a night game.
Pac-12 after dark?
Well, it's Arizona State at BYU.
Oh,
and
wow.
I don't know the exact time. I hope it's after dark for those that, finish up the Whiteout, roll into this game. Interesting matchup, Arizona State at BYU.
I mean, without much, I don't want to say much knowledge, but without much, happening, I like BYU. I'll take BYU. I like what they've done the last couple of years. They've fielded some okay teams these last few years. So I don't know. I'll stick with them. Yeah. They've got some draftable talent.
I think I'm going to go with the Power 5 school. Now, next year, 2 years from now, it's not. That won't be the delineator.
Big
but
12.
But I will go with Arizona State for the time being. On the road.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Arizona State too. BYU just beat Utah last week, and I think it was like the first time in a while.
Right.
You just never exactly the emotions of college football. You just never know. I mean, they come out and beat up on Arizona State for all we know, but I'm going to go Arizona State. I think Herm Edwards has done a very good job there, and I think that they're going to get BYU riding high, and they'll take advantage of it, even though it's on the road.
Hello, you play to win the game.
That's right. And our final non-Penn State pick'em is Coastal Carolina at Buffalo.
It's an interesting one. I'll say Coastal Carolina only because I like the name.
Chance, baby. Chance for our buddy Grant.
Yeah, for one of our favorite and most loyal listeners, Grant.
Very, very loyal.
I'm going to go Coastal as well. I do see them tripping up here in a couple, maybe this week. I don't think this week, but their schedule gets a little tough coming up. So we'll see. An amazing story that we talked a lot about last year. Fun program to follow. So, yeah, we'll go sweep there. And then, the pick that everyone's been waiting for. We are not College Game Day. We're actually better than College Game Day, so this is a real thing. Penn State, as of right now, is minus 6.5 points against Auburn. If you would please give us your score, and then we'll be able to determine if that's a cover or not, and keys to success or however you see it playing out.
So, while I was standing here, I wanted to get well, first of all, thank you for picking me to pick on Whiteout Week. I feel like that's an honor in and of itself.
It is an honor, yes. Thank you.
So I looked up a little bit about, what that has meant to Penn State over the last few years, and this will be the 13th time, I think, that they've done a Whiteout. 6-6 record in Whiteout games. And only the third time that they'll be playing a non-Big Ten opponent in whiteout games. So the last 2 times, Alabama and Notre Dame.
Yep.
In the first one, I believe, was the first whiteout game.
Yep.
So, interesting. They've never won. I'm sorry. They've only won back-to-back whiteout games twice. It was very early on, and then like 17-18, I think it was. So some interesting little tidbits about this, and they've always been good games. I think the Alabama one was probably their biggest loss, and that was like a double-digit point loss. So it'll be a fun one. You got a top 25 matchup. Penn State's a top 10 team, and Auburn, I think, they're down there around mid-20s, something like that, 22, something like that. I think you're looking at a good game. Auburn's, you're coming in, you're going to be fired up to play in a whiteout game. You know what kind of environment you're coming into. So I think it'll be close. I think that point spread, I don't know that I would take the points if I was Penn State or if I was betting on Penn State. So I think you're looking at like a 24-20 win for Penn State. Uh-oh.
Yeah, baby. There it is.
More headgear.
Headgear.
We got to do it anyway. I see what you did there.
Rob Stott, ladies and gentlemen. All right, time to bring the party down, folks. I'm actually picking the Auburn Tigers to win this game this weekend. I think that Penn State has a lot of questions to answer offensively. I am not yet convinced on Sean Clifford. Bo Nix also has a lot of questions to answer. I think a big play here or there for Auburn, low-scoring game, call it 20-17. I think Auburn wins this weekend.
I'll be shocked then. I might have to call out of the show next week if that's the case. I'm gonna go. This is good though. I mean, we got some diversity. We got Penn State winning and not covering. We got Auburn outright. I'm going Penn State cover, 24-13. Count at 11 points. I think Penn State at the end of the day takes care of the ball. I think Nix has some costly turnovers. Low-scoring game. What was your score, Bob?
20-17.
Yeah, so we're kind of all in that,
Yep.
Could be like a first 1-20 type of game, and I really do believe that. I think the whiteout has a major advantage. And
you're not talking any whiteout. This is the first whiteout since fans are allowed back in the stadium.
Yep. Right.
This
is a year off
Yeah.
whiteout. So
Yeah.
I was going to say, your stat about 6 and 6 in whiteouts is actually really good.
they are 500 in whiteouts.
I mean,
which is always your toughest game of the year
But
at home. I think of it as, so we do a Villanova show, right? When we talk about Villanova and they win every game at the Pavilion and they have this long winning streak at the Pavilion, it's like, yeah, but they play their 3 to 5 toughest games of the year at home at the Wells Fargo Center. Right. So, of course, right? So it's the same concept with the whiteout. It's, of course they don't have a unblemished record because it's every time Ohio State or Alabama or Notre Dame comes
they
to
could
town.
have a whiteout every year against,
Ball State.
Right, and be undefeated, of course. But the interesting part about that is like when Ohio State came to Beaver Stadium during the sanctioned era, and Penn State took them like double OT, and that's year Ohio State won a championship. It's that kind of thing that makes the whiteout the whiteout. So, I think Auburn is a good team, and Penn State as of right now is more battle tested than Auburn, and I think that's going to go a far way along with the atmosphere.
Hope you're right. That's it, folks.
I hope so too.
Yeah, now you can start gaining.
I need to
on
get
me.
some points, exactly.
Bingo. All right, guys. Thanks for being with us here tonight. Really fun show. Rob, excellent job as guest picker.
Thank you, Bob.
The hat,
I appreciate it.
That hat fits real snug on you.
Put him
buddy.
in.
Put him in, Coach. I'm 26 years old. I'm played 2 years of varsity. I'm in the best shape of my life. All right, folks. That's it for us. The Nittany Lion Sports Report here on Bob Long Sports. He's Rob Stott. He's Tyler Gehlhaus. And I'm Bob Long saying so long and enjoy the football this weekend.